The first person to close their eyes did not scream. There was no warning, no struggle, no desperate cry for help. 1 second, he was talking. The next, every light inside the room flickered. Every clock stopped. Every voice disappeared. When the lights returned, his chair was empty. No broken window, no open door, no footprints, nothing. The people who witnessed it never searched for him. They simply reached for fresh coffee, reset their alarm clocks, and whispered the same sentence they had repeated for years. Keep your eyes open. No one questioned where he had gone, because everyone already knew. And they were terrified that asking would make them next. There are places where people fear monsters, places where they fear the dead, places where they fear the dark. But there was one forgotten town where the greatest fear was something every living creature eventually needs: sleep. Parents taught their children how to stay awake before they taught them how to read. Birthdays were measured by how many nights someone had survived. Schools never dismissed students after sunset because nobody was allowed to go home and rest. Hospitals contained no beds. Bedrooms had become storage rooms. Mattresses had been burned decades earlier. Every home echoed with the sound of ticking clocks and buzzing alarms. Every street remained lit until sunrise. Nobody complained. Nobody protested. Because anyone who slept never came back the same. Some disappeared forever. Others returned days later with no memory of where they had been. Those who did return always carried the same empty expression, the same hollow stare. And before long, they stopped speaking altogether. Visitors called it superstition. Scientists called it exhaustion-induced mass hysteria. Government officials dismissed it as folklore. Even neighboring towns laughed at the stories. Until someone stayed overnight. Then the laughter ended. Records of the town became strangely difficult to find. Maps changed, road signs disappeared. Delivery drivers refused assignments there. Emergency calls from the area often ended in silence before anyone could explain what was happening. Yet people continued living there, generation after generation, following one rule that had become more important than breathing: never fall asleep. Our story begins with someone who had never heard that rule. Someone who arrived carrying no fear because he had no reason to fear what he could not imagine. He wasn't looking for mystery. He wasn't chasing ghost stories. He wasn't searching for forgotten legends. He was simply trying to get home. Instead, he woke up somewhere no traveler should ever wake. His head pounded as though he'd been unconscious for hours. His mouth tasted dry. His muscles felt heavy. The air carried the scent of old wood, dust, stale coffee, and damp concrete. His eyes slowly opened. Above him, cracked ceiling tiles stretched across a classroom that looked abandoned decades ago. A ceiling fan hung motionless. Broken fluorescent lights buzzed weakly overhead. Rows of faded student desks filled the room. Maps curled off stained walls. A chalkboard was covered with faded writing that no longer formed complete sentences. Everything looked forgotten. Everything except the people. Dozens of them. Men, women, teenagers, children. An elderly man gripping a flashlight with trembling fingers. A mother holding her daughter tightly against her chest. A teenage boy clutching a steaming mug of black coffee. Every one of them was staring directly at him. Not speaking, not blinking, just watching. The silence pressed against him harder than the walls themselves. He pushed himself upright. His heartbeat quickened. Where am I? Nobody answered. He looked around again. Something immediately felt wrong. Every clock inside the classroom had stopped. The one above the chalkboard, the old analog clock near the doorway, the wristwatch lying on a nearby desk, even the small travel clock hanging from someone's backpack. Each displayed exactly the same time. 3:17 a.m. His confusion deepened. Did someone bring me here? Still, no answer. The people continued staring. Their expressions weren't angry, they weren't curious. They looked frightened, as though they were waiting for something terrible to happen. A sharp gasp broke the silence. An elderly woman standing near the back slowly covered her mouth. Her eyes widened with unmistakable horror. She pointed directly at him. Then she screamed with every ounce of strength left in her aging voice. Who let him sleep? The room exploded into motion. Panic replaced silence in an instant. People rushed in every direction. Someone slammed the classroom door shut. Heavy furniture scraped across the floor as desks were shoved against the entrance. Another group sprinted toward the windows. Wooden boards, already stacked nearby, were lifted into place. Hammers struck nails into old frames with frantic speed. One man nearly dropped his flashlight because his hands shook so violently. Nobody explained anything. Nobody answered the newcomer's desperate questions. What are you doing? What's happening? Why are you locking us in? His voice disappeared beneath the chaos. The woman who had screamed began crying softly while clutching a worn necklace. A father hurried his children away from the windows. A teenage girl switched on another lantern, even though the room was already bright. Within seconds, every available light inside the school had been turned on. The classroom glowed with harsh, white light. Yet nobody looked relieved. If anything, their fear only grew. Then, the hammering stopped. Every person froze. Complete silence returned. From somewhere beyond the boarded windows, soft footsteps, slow, measured, circling the building. One step, then another, never rushing, never stopping. The sound drifted around the walls, as though someone or something was patiently walking the perimeter. No one dared breathe. The newcomer instinctively turned toward the nearest window. Before he could move another inch, 3 frightened hands grabbed his shoulders. A trembling voice whispered, "Don't." The footsteps continued, steady, unhurried, always just outside. Then a small hand gently tugged at his sleeve. He looked down. A little boy, no older than 8, stared up at him with eyes far older than any child's should be. The boy leaned close enough that only he could hear. His tiny voice barely rose above a whisper. It hurt him. The little boy's words remained in the newcomer's mind long after the sound of footsteps disappeared. It hurt him. Not someone hurt him. Not they hurt him. A single word that carried a fear so deep that nobody inside the classroom wanted to explain what it meant. The newcomer stared at the child. The boy quickly looked away, like he had already said too much. The room slowly returned to movement. The adults stepped away from the door. The teenagers lowered their flashlights. The elderly woman wiped her eyes and looked toward the ceiling. Nobody celebrated. Nobody relaxed. Because everyone in that room understood something he didn't. The footsteps outside had stopped. But whatever had been walking around the school had not gone away. For the next several minutes, nobody spoke. The only sounds were the humming generators, the ticking of hundreds of clocks, and the pouring of coffee into old ceramic cups. Then finally, an older man approached him. His face carried years of exhaustion. His eyes were red, not from crying, from lack of sleep. "My name is Daniel Voss," he said quietly. The newcomer waited for an explanation. Instead, Daniel looked toward the windows. "You need to understand something before you ask any more questions. He placed a cup of black coffee into his hands. Here in Blackridge, questions can wait. The newcomer looked down at the drink. Blackridge? Daniel nodded. The town you were never supposed to find. The name meant nothing to him. But the reaction from everyone else told him enough. Blackridge wasn't a normal town. It was a place people avoided. A place people forgot. A place that seemed to exist outside the attention of the rest of the world. What happened to me? The newcomer asked. Daniel hesitated. Then he answered with a question. What is the last thing you remember before waking up? The newcomer searched his memory. A road, rain, a dark stretch of highway, then nothing. No accident, no injury, no reason he should have been unconscious. I don't know. Daniel exchanged a glance with the others. That answer frightened them more than anything else. You fell asleep, Daniel said. The protagonist frowned. Yes, obviously. People sleep. A wave of discomfort moved through the room. Several people looked away. Daniel lowered his voice. Not here. The room became silent again. Nobody sleeps in Blackridge? The newcomer almost laughed. Almost. But nobody else did. They were serious. Completely serious. Daniel walked toward the chalkboard. Someone had written 4 sentences there in large letters. The writing looked old, like it had been rewritten thousands of times. Daniel pointed at the first one. Rule 1. He paused. Nobody sleeps. The newcomer stared at the words. That's impossible. Daniel looked at him. That's what everyone says before they learn. He pointed to the second sentence. Rule 2. Never remain alone after midnight. The newcomer looked confused. Why? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the third rule. Never respond to voices calling your name from outside. A nervous silence filled the classroom. Even if it's someone you know. The newcomer looked toward the windows. Even if it's family. Daniel's expression changed. Especially then. The fourth rule was written below the others. The handwriting was darker. The letters pressed harder into the board. If someone suddenly falls asleep? Daniel stopped. For the first time since introducing himself, he looked afraid. Do not wake them. The newcomer waited. Daniel finished the sentence. Run. The room became completely still. Why? Nobody answered. Because nobody wanted to. Outside, the wind moved against the walls of the old school. The boarded windows creaked. The newcomer looked at the people around him. They weren't acting like people following strange traditions. They were acting like survivors. People who had learned the rules because breaking them had consequences. And slowly, he began noticing things he'd ignored before. Nobody sat down. Not one person rested against a wall. Nobody closed their eyes for even a second. Whenever someone blinked for too long, another person immediately spoke to them. Stay awake. Look at me. Drink. The entire room was built around one purpose, keeping everyone conscious. The next few hours revealed pieces of Blackridge's nightmare, not all at once. Nobody gave him a complete explanation. They gave him fragments, warnings, memories, small pieces of information that created more questions than answers. Every family in Blackridge worked in shifts. During the day, one person watched another. At night, they switched. Parents watched children. Children watched parents. Friends watched friends. Nobody trusted exhaustion because exhaustion could make someone forget. And forgetting was dangerous. Coffee had become more valuable than money. The town's supply was carefully measured. Every household received exactly enough to survive another day. No more, no less. Old radios filled every room, not because people enjoyed listening, because silence was considered dangerous. The radios rarely played music. Most of the time, they produced nothing but static, constant noise, constant movement, a reminder that everyone was still awake. Every house had bells attached to every door, front doors, back doors, windows. The town you were never supposed to find. The name meant nothing to him, but the reaction from everyone else told him enough. Blackridge wasn't a normal town. It was a place people avoided, a place people forgot, a place that seemed to exist outside the attention of the rest of the world. The room around him seemed to disappear, because there was only one question left. How could someone appear in a photograph before they existed? That night, Blackridge waited. Nobody said it directly. Nobody needed to. Everyone knew the hardest hours were coming. Midnight, the time when the town became quietest, the time when everyone became most afraid. The generators were checked. The coffee was prepared. The radios were turned higher. Every bell was tested. Every person found someone to stand beside. Nobody stayed alone. Nobody closed their eyes. But exhaustion does not care about rules. It does not care about fear. One by one, people began struggling. A man rubbed his face repeatedly. A woman stared blankly at a wall. A teenager whispered that he heard someone calling him. Who? Was Blackridge truly gone? Or was it only waiting for someone else to fall asleep? Because if the people standing outside his window were real, then somewhere, right now, in some forgotten town, someone else may be hearing the same warning. Someone else may be fighting to stay awake. Someone else may be discovering that the most dangerous place to close your eyes is the place where you feel safest. So tell us, if you were trapped in Blackridge, knowing that sleep was the only way out, would you close your eyes? Or would you stay awake forever? Share your answer in the comments. And if you want to hear more unexplained mysteries, terrifying encounters, and stories from places that should never have been found, subscribe to this channel, because the next story may be waiting for you.